HOA rules seemed more important than human life until that burning afternoon. When the pool became forbidden during a heatwave emergency, nobody expected what would happen next. The screaming, the cardiac crisis, and the military helicopters arriving changed everything forever in our quiet neighborhood. Before you watch full story, comment below from which country are you watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more amazing stories. The summer of 2023 was brutal. I'm talking about the kind of heat where the asphalt melts under your feet and the air feels like you're breathing through a wet blanket. My name is Sarah Mitchell, and I live in Sunset Valley, a small suburban community in Arizona with my daughter Emma, who was 8 years old at the time. Emma had a heart condition. Nothing too serious with proper care, but it meant we had to be extra careful during extreme weather. Her cardiologist had given us strict instructions to keep her cool, hydrated, and stress-free during heat waves. That particular week, temperatures were hitting 115 degrees Fahrenheit, and the heat advisory warned everyone to stay indoors. Our HOA was run by a woman named Patricia Henderson, though everyone called her Karen behind her back. She was the kind of person who measured your grass with a ruler and sent violation notices if it was half an inch too long. Patricia lived for rules, regulations, and making other people's lives difficult. Patricia had been HOA president for 7 years, and in that time, she had transformed our once friendly neighborhood into a place where people were afraid to put up a mailbox without checking 3 different rule books. She drove a white Mercedes that she parked in the exact center of her driveway, measuring the distance from each side to ensure perfect symmetry. Her own house was immaculate, with perfectly trimmed hedges shaped into geometric patterns and a lawn so green it looked artificial. She held monthly inspection walks where she would patrol the neighborhood with her clipboard, writing down violations. A child's bike left on a lawn overnight. A trash can visible from the street on a non-collection day. A car parked facing the wrong direction. Nothing escaped her notice, and she seemed to take genuine pleasure in catching people breaking rules. Most neighbors had learned to simply comply with her demands. It was easier than fighting. Those who had tried to stand up to her found themselves buried in paperwork, fines, and threats of legal action. The HOA board, which should have provided oversight, had long ago given up trying to rein her in. It was easier to let Patricia run things and avoid her wrath. I had managed to stay off her radar for the most part. I kept my lawn maintained, followed the rules about trash cans and decorations, and generally tried to be invisible. But I knew it was only a matter of time before something brought us into conflict. The trouble started on a Tuesday morning. Our air conditioning unit had been working overtime because of the heat wave, and that morning, it finally gave up. I woke up at 6 a.m. to a house that was already uncomfortable. By 7, the temperature inside had climbed to 85 degrees. By 8, it was 90. I called the AC company that had installed our unit 5 years ago. They were sympathetic but couldn't help. "Ma'am, we have over 200 calls ahead of you. Everyone's AC is breaking down in this heat. We're working 18-hour days and still can't keep up. The earliest we can get to you is Friday, maybe Saturday." I called every AC repair company in town, but they were all booked solid. Everyone's units were failing in the heat. Some companies weren't even answering their phones anymore, probably overwhelmed with desperate customers. One company offered to put me on a cancellation list, but couldn't guarantee anything. By noon, it was 95 degrees inside our house. Emma was lying on the couch, barely moving, her face flushed. I had given her cold water and put a wet cloth on her forehead, but I could see she was struggling. Her breathing was becoming labored, and she looked miserable. "Mom, I don't feel good," she whispered. I checked her pulse. It was elevated, which wasn't surprising given the heat, but it worried me. Emma's cardiologist had been very clear that overheating could trigger an episode. We needed to get her somewhere cool, and we needed to do it fast. Our community had a beautiful pool that HOA fees paid for. It was supposed to be open from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. during summer months. The pool was Olympic-sized, with a shallow end perfect for kids and a deep end for serious swimmers. It had been renovated just 2 years ago with modern filtration systems and safety features. Our monthly HOA fees were substantial, and the pool was one of the main amenities we paid for. I figured we could spend the hottest parts of the day there, keeping Emma cool in the water while I worked on finding a solution for the AC. I packed a bag with towels, sunscreen, plenty of water bottles, some snacks, and Emma's medication. I also brought my laptop so I could continue calling repair companies and researching emergency cooling options. The walk to the pool was brutal. Even though it was only 3 blocks away, the heat hit us like a physical force the moment we stepped outside. The sidewalk radiated heat, and there wasn't a cloud in the sky. Emma held my hand tightly, moving slowly. I could see sweat already forming on her forehead. "Just a little further, sweetie," I encouraged her. "Once we get to the pool, you'll feel so much better." When we finally reached the pool area, the relief was immediate. The water sparkled in the sunlight, looking like the most inviting thing in the world. There were a few older residents sitting in the shade with their feet in the water, but otherwise, the area was quiet. Most people were sensibly staying in their air-conditioned homes. We went to the pool around 1 p.m., armed with our supplies. Emma's face lit up when she saw the water. Despite feeling awful, she still loved swimming. It was one of the few activities her doctors encouraged, low impact, good for her cardiovascular system, and something she could do at her own pace. I helped her apply sunscreen carefully, making sure every bit of exposed skin was covered. Then I set up our spot under one of the large umbrellas near the shallow end. I kept the medication bag close, just in case, and positioned myself where I could watch Emma constantly while also having some shade. Emma slipped into the water slowly, gasping a little at the initial coolness. But within moments, I could see the relief on her face. The water was refreshing, probably kept around 78 degrees, which felt amazing compared to the blazing heat. Her shoulders relaxed, and some color came back to her cheeks. "Mom, this feels so good," she called out, smiling for the first time that day. I smiled back, feeling my own tension ease. "Take it slow, okay? Don't overdo it." She nodded and began gently moving through the water, not really swimming, just floating and enjoying the coolness. I pulled out my laptop and started researching portable AC units, emergency cooling centers, anything that might help us get through the next few days. We had been there for about 30 minutes when I heard the click of heels on the pool deck. I looked up and my heart immediately sank. Patricia Henderson was marching toward us, wearing a wide-brimmed sun hat, designer sunglasses, and a crisp white outfit that somehow looked perfect despite the heat. She was carrying her ever-present clipboard, which was never a good sign. Her lips were pressed into a thin line, and even from a distance, I could see the disapproval in her posture. Everything about her body language screamed violation and confrontation. I took a deep breath and prepared myself for whatever was coming. "Sarah Mitchell," she called out in that sharp voice of hers. "What are you doing here?" "Swimming," I replied, trying to keep my tone neutral. "Our AC broke down, and it's dangerously hot in the house." Patricia flipped through papers on her clipboard. According to HOA Regulation 7.3, Section B, the pool is closed for cleaning today. I looked around. The pool was crystal clear, and there were no cleaning supplies or workers anywhere. "Patricia, I don't see anyone cleaning. The pool looks fine." "The cleaning was scheduled for today," she insisted. "You need to leave immediately." Emma was in the shallow end, playing happily. She looked so much better than she had in our overheated house. Her cheeks had regained some color. "Patricia, my daughter has a heart condition. Our house is 95 degrees inside. She needs to stay cool. Can't the cleaning wait until tomorrow?" "Rules are rules, Sarah. If I make an exception for you, I'll have to make exceptions for everyone. You need to leave now, or I'll have to issue a violation." I felt my patience wearing thin. The heat, the stress of the broken AC, the worry about Emma, and now this unreasonable woman standing in front of me, it was all too much. Patricia, this is a medical emergency. I'm not asking for special treatment. I'm asking for basic human decency. Look at her, I gestured toward Emma, who was watching us with growing anxiety. She has a heart condition. She was overheating in our house. The pool is the only place she can safely be right now. I don't appreciate your tone, Patricia said, her face turning red. She took a step closer, her voice rising. And I don't appreciate being lectured about rules in my own community. The pool is closed. End of discussion. Your community? I repeated, feeling my anger spike. Last time I checked, we all pay HOA fees here. This pool belongs to all of us, not just you. I am the HOA president, Patricia said sharply, pointing at me with her pen. I have the authority to enforce closures for maintenance and safety. If you have a problem with that, you can file a formal complaint. A formal complaint? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My daughter could have a medical crisis, and you want me to file paperwork? Emma had stopped playing and was now standing in the shallow end, watching us with wide eyes. I could see the anxiety building in her face, the way her hand had moved to her chest. Stress was one of the things we were supposed to avoid at all costs. Her cardiologist had been very clear that emotional stress could trigger an episode just as easily as physical exertion or heat. Mom. Emma called out quietly, her voice trembling. Is everything okay? Do we have to leave? Everything's fine, sweetie. Keep playing, I tried to reassure her, but my voice was shaky and unconvincing even to my own ears. Patricia raised her voice even louder, apparently not caring that she was upsetting a child. I'm not going to argue about this. This is not a debate. Get out of the pool now, or I'm calling security. There is no security, I shot back, my voice rising to match hers. We're a small HOA of 48 houses. You're just being cruel for no reason. There's no cleaning crew here. There's no legitimate reason to close this pool. You're just doing this because you can. How dare you? Patricia's face turned an alarming shade of red. How dare you question my authority? I am the HOA president, and I will not be spoken to this way by someone who clearly has no respect for community rules. I'll have you fined. I'll have you brought before the board. I'll have you evicted if I have to. She was practically screaming now, her voice echoing across the pool area. The elderly residents who had been sitting with their feet in the water had quietly left, not wanting to be involved in the confrontation. We were alone with Patricia's rage. You're being completely unreasonable. I shouted back, no longer caring about keeping my composure. My daughter has a medical condition. She could die if she overheats. What kind of person are you? What kind of person am I? Patricia's voice reached a new pitch. I'm the person who keeps this community running. I'm the person who enforces the rules that keep property values up. I'm the person who has to deal with entitled people like you who think rules don't apply to them. That's when I saw Emma's face go pale. Her hand clutched at her chest, and her breathing became rapid and shallow. Time seemed to slow down as I watched my daughter's legs buckle slightly. Emma. I dropped everything and ran to the pool, my laptop crashing to the ground. I jumped into the water, not caring about my phone in my pocket or anything else. Nothing mattered except getting to my daughter. I reached her in seconds and pulled her into my arms. Her heart was racing irregularly under my fingers when I checked her pulse. I could feel the dangerous rhythm, too fast, too erratic. This was exactly what her cardiologist had warned us about. This was the kind of episode that could turn fatal if not treated immediately. Emma's lips were starting to turn pale, and her eyes had a glazed, unfocused look. She was trying to speak but couldn't form words. Her breathing was coming in short, panicked gasps. It's okay, baby. I've got you. Just breathe with me, okay? In and out, slow and steady, I tried to keep my voice calm even though panic was screaming through every nerve in my body. I pulled her out of the pool, laying her gently on the deck. "What's wrong with her?" Patricia demanded, but she didn't sound concerned. She sounded annoyed, as if Emma's medical emergency was a personal inconvenience. Is this some kind of act to get sympathy? I couldn't even process what she had just said. My daughter was having a cardiac episode, potentially dying, and this woman thought it was manipulation. I grabbed my phone from my soaking pocket, praying it still worked. Thank God, the screen lit up. She's having a cardiac episode. I need to call 911. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely unlock the phone. This is ridiculous, Patricia muttered, still standing there with her clipboard. This is exactly the kind of drama I was trying to avoid. If you had just followed the rules and left when I asked, none of this would be happening. I wanted to scream at her, to make her understand the magnitude of what was happening, but I couldn't waste a single second. I dialed 911 with trembling fingers. 911, what's your emergency? My 8-year-old daughter has a congenital heart condition and she's having an episode. Her heart rate is extremely elevated and irregular. Her lips are turning blue. We're at the Sunset Valley Community Pool on Maple Drive. I was crying now, the words tumbling out between sobs. The operator was professional and calm, a steadying voice in the chaos. Ma'am, I need you to take a deep breath. Help is on the way. Can you tell me more about her symptoms? She's conscious but barely responsive. Her pulse is rapid and irregular, probably over 160 beats per minute. She's having trouble breathing. She has supraventricular tachycardia and has had episodes before, but never this bad. Okay, that's very helpful information. Paramedics are being dispatched now. They'll be there in approximately 8 minutes. Is she lying down? Yes, I have her flat on the ground. Good. Keep her comfortable and calm. Don't give her anything to eat or drink. Just stay with her and keep talking to her. You're doing great. 8 minutes. It felt like an eternity. Each second stretched impossibly long. I cradled Emma's head in my lap, stroking her hair with wet hands, trying to keep myself together for her sake. Emma, sweetie, help is coming. You just need to stay with me, okay? Think about your favorite things. Think about the beach we visited last year, remember? With the dolphins, and your birthday party coming up. We're going to have so much fun. Emma's eyes fluttered, and she tried to nod, but even that small movement seemed to exhaust her. Her hand found mine and squeezed weakly. That small gesture broke my heart and filled it with hope at the same time. Patricia stood several feet away, still clutching her clipboard like a shield. This is all very dramatic, she said coldly, her voice dripping with skepticism. When this is over, we're going to have a serious talk about your behavior today and the disruption you've caused. I ignored her completely. Every ounce of my focus was on Emma. Her lips were getting more blue. This was bad. Really, really bad. Worse than any episode she had ever had before. Suddenly, I heard helicopters. Not one, but two. They appeared over the trees and began descending toward the pool area. The noise was deafening. Patricia stumbled backward, her hat flying off her head from the rotor wash. What on earth, she gasped. The helicopters landed in a large open area near the pool. Before I could process what was happening, military personnel in uniform jumped out and ran toward us. A man in an officer's uniform, probably in his late 40s, reached us first. Mrs. Mitchell. I'm Colonel James Mitchell. Where's my granddaughter? I stared in shock. Emma's grandfather. My ex-husband's father. We hadn't seen him in over 2 years, not since the messy divorce. But Emma had always adored her grandfather. Here, I managed to say. She's having a cardiac episode. The colonel had brought a full medical team with him. A military doctor dropped down beside Emma immediately, pulling out equipment from a medical bag. Within seconds, they had her on oxygen and were monitoring her vitals with portable devices. Heart rate 160, irregular rhythm, the doctor reported. Starting treatment protocol now. How did you know? I asked the colonel, tears streaming down my face. Emma called me 20 minutes ago from your phone. She told me the AC was broken and some woman was yelling and she wasn't feeling well. I told her to call 911 and I'd be there as fast as I could. He looked at his granddaughter with such love and concern. I was doing training exercises 50 miles from here. We got clearance and came immediately. Patricia had gone completely silent. She was staring at the military helicopters and the armed personnel now securing the area. Her clipboard hung limply at her side. The military doctor looked up. She's stabilizing. We need to transport her to the hospital for proper treatment, but she's going to be okay. Relief washed over me so intensely I nearly collapsed. The colonel caught my arm. She's strong, Sarah. Just like her mother. They loaded Emma onto a stretcher and into one of the helicopters. I climbed in with her, and the colonel followed. As we were lifting off, I saw Patricia standing alone by the pool, looking small and stunned. At the hospital, Emma received the care she needed. The episode had been serious but caught in time. The doctor said that if she had been stressed for much longer in that heat, it could have been much worse. Possibly fatal. The colonel stayed with us. Despite everything that had happened during the divorce, he loved his granddaughter, and that meant everything. We talked while Emma slept, the first real conversation we'd had in 2 years. I should have stayed in touch better, he said quietly. After David and you divorced, I let my anger at him create distance from Emma. That was wrong. You came when she needed you, I replied. That's what matters. What's going to happen with that HOA woman, he asked, his expression darkening. I don't know. Honestly, right now I just care that Emma is okay. But the colonel wasn't content to let it go. Over the next few days, while Emma recovered at home with a new, working air conditioning unit that the colonel personally paid to have installed immediately, he made some calls. It turned out that what Patricia had done was not just cruel but illegal. The community pool was listed in the HOA documents as an essential amenity, and closing it without proper notice and legitimate cause was a violation of the HOA's own bylaws. More importantly, refusing to allow someone to use a community amenity during a medical emergency opened the HOA up to massive liability. The colonel hired a lawyer for me, despite my protests. Emma is my family, he said simply. And you're her mother. That makes you family too. The lawyer sent a letter to the HOA board detailing everything that had happened and the potential legal consequences. The letter pointed out that if Emma had died or been permanently injured, Patricia's actions could have been considered criminally negligent. It also mentioned that several neighbors had witnessed the entire confrontation and were willing to testify about Patricia's behavior. An emergency HOA meeting was called 2 weeks later. Emma was feeling much better by then, and the colonel stayed with her while I attended. The community center was packed. Apparently, I wasn't the only person who had problems with Patricia's rule enforcement. Patricia sat at the head table, looking pale and nervous. This was probably the first time in years she had faced any real opposition. The HOA board president, a man named Robert Chen who usually let Patricia run things, opened the meeting. We're here to discuss the incident involving Sarah Mitchell and her daughter Emma, as well as broader concerns about HOA management. One by one, neighbors stood up to share their own stories about Patricia. The elderly man who had been fined because his grass turned brown during water restrictions, the family who had been threatened with violations because their kids' toys were visible from the street, the couple who had been harassed about the color of their front door even though it matched the approved palette. When it was my turn to speak, I kept it simple. Patricia's enforcement of a non-existent pool cleaning nearly killed my daughter. Her refusal to show basic human compassion during a medical emergency is not just bad leadership, it's dangerous. I'm not asking for revenge. I'm asking for accountability and change. The vote was held that night. Patricia was removed as HOA president by a vote of 47-3. The board also voted to revise the HOA rules to include provisions for emergency exceptions and to limit the authority of any single board member. Patricia stood up, her face red with humiliation and anger. "You're all going to regret this. This community will fall apart without proper enforcement. Or maybe," Robert Chen said quietly, "it will become an actual community instead of a dictatorship." Patricia grabbed her purse and stormed out. We heard later that she put her house up for sale the following week. The changes in our HOA were immediate and positive. The new president, a retired teacher named Margaret Woods, had a completely different approach. She believed in communication over confrontation, community over compliance. The pool became a gathering place again. Families spent evenings there, and neighbors who had barely known each other started becoming friends. The oppressive atmosphere that Patricia had created lifted, and people seemed genuinely happier. Emma recovered completely from her cardiac episode, though it had scared all of us. The experience brought the Colonel back into our lives in a meaningful way. He started visiting every weekend, taking Emma to parks and museums, rebuilding the relationship that had been lost. One Saturday afternoon, about 2 months after the incident, we were all at the pool together, me, Emma, and the Colonel. Emma was playing with some friends she had made, her laughter carrying across the water. "You know," the Colonel said, "when I got that call from Emma, I've never been so scared in my life. I've been in combat zones, faced enemy fire, but nothing compared to hearing my granddaughter tell me she couldn't breathe and some woman was screaming." "I'm glad she called you," I said honestly. "And I'm glad you came." "I'll always come," he promised. "For both of you." We sat in comfortable silence, watching Emma play. The heat was still intense. Arizona summers don't change, but we were prepared now. We had multiple backup plans, a support system, and most importantly, we had each other. About 6 months later, I ran into Patricia at a grocery store. She looked different, tired, maybe a bit smaller somehow. When our eyes met, I saw her hesitate, then she started to walk away. "Patricia," I called out. She stopped, turned slowly. "Sarah." There was an awkward moment of silence. Then she spoke, her voice quiet. "How is Emma?" "She's doing well. Thank you for asking." Another pause. Patricia looked down at her shopping cart. I've thought about that day a lot. What I did. What I said. I waited, not sure where this was going. "I was wrong," she said finally, and the words seemed to cost her something. "I got so caught up in rules and authority that I forgot about people. About compassion. I'm sorry. I know it doesn't change anything, but I am sorry." I took a breath. Forgiveness isn't always easy, and part of me was still angry about what had happened. But I also saw a person who was genuinely remorseful. "Thank you for saying that," I replied. "It does matter." She nodded, blinking rapidly. "I moved to a condo. No HOA. I think I needed to step back and figure out who I am without all that power and control." "That sounds healthy," I said, and I meant it. We didn't become friends. Some bridges are too burned for that. But we exchanged a few more polite words and then went our separate ways. It was closure, of a sort. Looking back on everything that happened, I realize it taught me several important lessons. First, never underestimate the importance of community and compassion. Rules matter, but people matter more. Second, family can surprise you. The Colonel and I had lost our connection, but when it mattered most, he was there. Third, standing up for yourself and your loved ones is not just important, it's essential. If I had backed down that day at the pool, if I had let Patricia bully us into leaving, Emma might not have survived. Sometimes you have to fight, even when it's uncomfortable. Emma learned lessons too. She learned that her grandfather loved her enough to move heaven and earth to help her. She learned that her mother would always protect her. And she learned that communities work best when people care about each other, not just about rules. It's been almost 2 years since that terrible day. Emma is now 10 years old and thriving. Her heart condition is well managed with medication and regular checkups. We have a better air conditioning system that gets serviced regularly. And we have the Colonel in our lives consistently. Our HOA is actually pleasant now. Margaret has done an amazing job as president. She organized neighborhood barbecues, holiday parties, and even a community garden. People know each other's names. They help each other out. It feels like a real community. The pool has become a symbol of everything that changed. Instead of being a place of conflict and rules, it's now the heart of our community. During summer evenings, you'll find families gathering there, kids playing while parents chat and laugh. The atmosphere is completely different from the tense, fearful place it used to be under Patricia's rule. Margaret implemented a community-first policy. Yes, we still have rules, you need rules for any community to function, but they're reasonable now. And more importantly, there's a process for emergency exceptions. If someone has a legitimate need, like a medical situation or a family crisis, the HOA works with them instead of against them. Last month, Emma asked if she could do a presentation at school about what happened. She wanted to talk about standing up for what's right and the importance of compassion. I was hesitant at first, it had been traumatic, but she was insistent. "Mom," she said with the wisdom of someone far older than 10, "bad things happened, but good things came from it too. Grandpa came back. The HOA got better. We learned we're stronger than we thought. That's a story worth telling." So she did her presentation. She talked about her heart condition, about the heat wave, about the scary day at the pool. But she also talked about her grandfather arriving in helicopters, about how the community came together afterward, about how one person's cruelty led to positive change for everyone. Her teacher called me afterward. "Emma's presentation was remarkable," she said. Several students were in tears, but not from sadness. From inspiration. "She's a special kid." "She is," I agreed, my voice thick with emotion. "She really is." The Colonel has become a permanent fixture in our lives. He visits every weekend without fail, and Emma spends 2 weeks every summer at his place. He's teaching her things I never could: discipline, courage, and the importance of standing up for others. But he's also learned from her. She's teaching him how to be gentle, how to listen, and how to be present in the moment. One evening last week, we were all having dinner together when Emma suddenly asked, "Mom, do you think Miss Patricia ever thinks about what happened?" I paused, considering my answer carefully. "I think she does, sweetheart. I think that day changed her too, just in a different way." "Do you think she's happy now?" Emma asked, her eyes full of genuine concern. "That's my daughter, even after everything Patricia put us through, Emma still has empathy for her." "I hope so," I said honestly. "I hope she found peace." The Colonel reached over and squeezed Emma's hand. "You have a good heart, kiddo. Don't ever lose that. If you're expecting me to say that everything is perfect now, that would be a lie. Life is never that simple. Emma still has challenging days with her health. The Colonel and I still navigate the complicated relationship between us. The HOA still has occasional disputes. But we're better than we were. We're stronger. We're more connected. Sometimes I drive past the community pool and remember that awful day. The heat, the fear, Patricia's angry face, Emma's pale lips. But then I remember what came after: the sound of helicopter rotors, the Colonel's worried face, the community rallying together, Emma's recovery. Patricia's cruelty was real, but it wasn't the end of the story. It was a catalyst for change, for growth, for healing. Just yesterday, a new family moved into Patricia's old house. They have 3 young children who were excited about the pool. Margaret personally welcomed them and gave them a tour of the neighborhood. She introduced them to neighbors, showed them the community garden, and explained how our HOA works now. "We believe in supporting each other here," Margaret told them warmly. "If you ever need anything, just ask. We're a community, not just a collection of houses." The new mother had tears in her eyes. "You have no idea how refreshing that is to hear," she said. "Our last HOA was a nightmare." I smiled, thinking about how far we had come. Change is possible. Even in the darkest moments, even when facing the cruelty of people like Patricia, positive change is possible. Emma is in the pool right now as I write this, playing Marco Polo with her friends and the children from the new family. The Colonel is in a lounge chair nearby, reading a book but looking up every few minutes to check on her. The late afternoon sun is gentler than it was 2 years ago, or maybe we're just better prepared for it. I hear Emma's laugh ring out across the water, clear and strong and full of life. It's the most beautiful sound in the world. That laugh almost died that day 2 years ago. But it didn't. Emma survived, and she's thriving. The heatwave taught us many lessons. It taught us about the importance of community, about standing up for what's right, about the power of family. It taught us that rules without compassion are just tools of oppression. It taught us that sometimes the worst moments in our lives can lead to the best changes. And most importantly, it taught us that love, whether it's a mother's love for her daughter, a grandfather's love for his granddaughter, or a community's love for its members, is stronger than any heat, any cruelty, any obstacle. The heat still comes every summer. That hasn't changed. Arizona summers are brutal and unforgiving. But we face them together now, prepared and united. We have backup plans for emergencies. We watch out for our elderly neighbors during heat advisories. We make sure everyone has access to cool spaces when they need them. And that makes all the difference. Emma calls out to me from the pool, waving enthusiastically. "Mom! Come swim with us." I close my laptop, stand up, and walk toward the pool. The water sparkles invitingly in the late afternoon sun. As I slip into the cool water next to my daughter, I think about how lucky we are. Not because everything went perfectly, but because we survived the imperfect parts and came out stronger. That's the real story. Not the crisis, but the recovery. Not the cruelty, but the compassion that followed. Not the heat that tried to destroy us, but the love that kept us whole. And as Emma splashes water at me, giggling with pure joy, I know that every struggle was worth it for this moment right here.